as teachers get ready to walk out of the classroom, and some kids struggle to catch up after COVID, with some dreadful warnings about the state of classrooms and morale in schools. We have one big question this morning. How best can parents and the public judge what's really going on?
And with me at the mega desk, we have a fantastic panel for you this morning. Henry Dimbleby, foodie, author, who until last month was helping the government with their plans. Lorna Hughes, the editor of Scotland's Sunday Mail, that's made the running on a series of important stories about the SNP. And the voice of thousands of teachers and critic of Ofsted, Mary Bousted from the National Education Union. One thing she also said was that the upcoming teaching strikes would be damaging for children, and she urged unions and government basically to sort it out. And in Scotland there was a resolution after a lot of disruption, rolling strikes. Do you think in the end the politics mean that the UK government will have to budge as well, because parents can't deal with their kids being off all the time from strikes?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it would be madness not to. I think teachers should be rewarded for the job that they're doing anyway, and we were lucky in Scotland that we were able to resolve it after a lot of toing and froing. But yeah, I don't think any parent in the country could probably cope with that again.
Well, Mary, can you answer that then? I mean, the Inspector of Schools said very clearly, if you go on strike and continue to do so, because there have already been some strikes, I think we can remind people some pictures of them. You're going to damage children's prospects. What do you say to parents who feel that this morning? Just sort it out, get on with it.
Well, we would love to sort it out, and we don't want to damage children's prospects, but it's the government which is refusing to negotiate. They just, since the last offer that the government made was rejected by 98% of National Education Union members in 6 days on a 2/3 turnout. That is an astounding rejection of the offer. Now, what the government should have done was say, right, well, clearly that wasn't good enough. Let's get back into negotiation and let's try and resolve this. That's what we have been constantly asking for, because my members do not want to be out on strike, but they feel there is no alternative.
But what is more important to your members, though? The education of children after a period of real disruption. We've heard at length from Amanda Spielman just how difficult it is for kids right now. And some parents, I think, are going to be screaming at the telly this morning, thinking, well, we're sorry, everybody would like a pay rise, but please don't do this to our children.
Laura, the problem we've got now is that our schools are running on crisis mode every day, and parents watching this will know that their children are routinely being taught by teachers who are not qualified in the subjects they're teaching. Just this morning, I read an article about 2 schools which are now moving to a 4-day week because they can't recruit teachers.
But taking strike action has such an impact on families. I mean, why are you choosing to strike the day after a bank holiday?
Well, because we've got 6 months where we can have a strike action, and it's very difficult to take strike days that we can make work. The legislation around strike action is very, very intense. But we don't want to do this. I say now directly to the government, we'll go in tomorrow. Let's negotiate so we don't have to take strike action on Thursday. None of my members want to disrupt education and lose more pay when they are so inadequately paid already.
OK, well, we'll see if by the end of the programme maybe we can get a response from the Department of Education, and maybe you'll have a meeting in the diary tomorrow. So, as hopefully you know by now, you've heard some of your emails through the course of the programme. Do keep them coming. We love to have you as part of our conversations. And I do have to remind us that talking about education and Ofsted has elicited more emails than we've ever had on any other subject. So do keep them flowing in, and we use your experiences to help us decide what questions to ask our guests from your real world experiences. So you can email us, kuenssberg@bbc.co.uk, or if you're social media inclined, you can use BBC Laura K as the hashtag. So much going on at the moment, not least Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, arriving in the studio. There are a couple of weeks to go till the local elections. Welcome to you again. We were just talking there with Mary Bousted about pay and teachers' strikes. Now, the teachers want above inflation pay increases. Do you think they should get that?
Well, what they want above all is to get around the negotiating table with the government, and I think Mary is completely right on that. I've been quite alarmed by the government's unwillingness to engage in negotiations.
But they have made them an offer, and what the teachers want is an above inflation pay rise. They say the offer's not enough.
Well, get round the table. I mean, personally, I think they need a fair deal. There's a shortage of teachers, particularly in specialist subjects. And when I talk to head teachers in my constituency, they're really worried about making sure they can recruit the best people to teach our children.
But should they get above inflation pay rises? I mean, you've said specifically as one of your promises is that pay rises for carers, they should get £2 an hour more than the minimum wage. That is way above inflation. So should teachers get way above inflation too?
Well, I think they should get very near to inflation. But the key thing...
Near to inflation?
Well, I think people need a fair deal. And if you look at the shortage of teachers, which I've got to come back to, because that's the picture, and whether it's in the education or in the health service or in care, you're seeing huge shortages. And when you have shortages, you do need to give people a fair deal, or you're not going to recruit the people that patients need, that parents want to see.
And people will want to know what you mean by a fair deal and near inflation. So in Scotland, teachers were given 8%. Would 8% be the right kind of amount for teachers in England?
Well, the reason why I keep going back to the negotiation is you need to make sure you're getting a good deal both for the taxpayer and for our schools and our children. And you can only do that if you get round the table. Let me give you an example.
But you can only do that if you offer something and avoid strikes, if you actually give a kind of offer that teachers might accept. Yeah. So I'll ask you again, you said near inflation. Would 8%, which is what teachers got in Scotland, be the kind of figure that you would think would be a good idea?
If that's the sort of thing that could be negotiated and get people back to school and make sure we can deal with the shortages in teachers, that sounds to me in the right sort of ballpark. But it has to come from negotiations. And the fact that the government won't even get around the table, I think, is the scandal. And I think if you're a parent worried about these strikes, if you're a head teacher trying to get staff recruited, you'll be really disappointed. And I think it's partly the chaos in this government. Not only have they had 3 prime ministers and 4 health secretaries and 5 chancellors, they've had 6 education secretaries since the last general election. And that chaos and incompetence at the top is, I think, largely to blame for many of the problems we're seeing, whether it's in our education services or in our health services, where I think we've got a huge crisis.
OK, well, government would, of course, dispute that, and Oliver Dowden was happy to boast about how good some schools are. But Mary, I'd just like to close with you, though, on the issue of strikes, because it matters so much to families around the country. Last week, Pat Cullen told us there could be nurses' strikes all the way up till Christmas. Is that a possibility if you don't get the call from Gillian Keegan to go and talk?
If we don't get negotiations, we have no option other to do that. But I want to emphasise again, we don't want to. We want to negotiate and we want to end this dispute. So we'll go in any time. I hope Gillian Keegan calls us today.
OK, we'll see. We'll maybe check in with her after the programme. Henry Dimbleby, Lorna Hughes and Mary Bousted, thanks so much for being with us this morning. We've covered lots of ground, but you've been very, very generous with your insights and we're grateful for that. And I'm grateful to you, of course, as well for watching. Well, for the first time, we've spent most of our hour together talking about what's going on in our schools. It's interesting, education, rightly or wrongly, hasn't been up at the top of the charts in political conversation that much in recent years. But as questions about Ofsted persist and the after effects of the pandemic reveal themselves, that's even before we've mentioned how tech is changing kids' lives and bringing new challenges for parents, I wonder if what goes on in the classroom and the staff room might rise up the political conversation again. The emails you've been sending in to us in the last couple of days suggests it will. That, of course, for any politician who reckons they might have convincing lessons, gives them a big, big opportunity. So do keep letting us know what you think. Thank you for your company. And as ever, you can catch up on anything you missed on the iPlayer. And I will look forward to seeing you next Sunday back on BBC One at 9 o'clock. Goodbye for now.